All right, welcome back to Coach's Corner. I'm RJ Boudros, is Mitch Hancock, and we have Bill Schindel, head coach at Adrian College, with us today. We're going to just hear from Coach Schindel, hear about his program, where he's from, and what he has going on at Adrian College. And we're going to talk about some of his specific drills that he does. He put on the wrestling vault, his 7-step drill, which is really in depth and awesome. It's a great way to even run a practice. So we're going to hear from him about that. We're going to ask him some questions, and then see what else we can get out of Coach Schindel from Adrian College. So we'll just start off. Bill, why don't you just tell us kind of where you're from, how you got to Adrian College, and what you have going on at Adrian College right now.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. So originally I'm from Akron, Ohio. I actually kind of grew into a wrestling family. My grandfather was a founding member of Ohio Youth Wrestling. And then he had 9 kids. So I'm one of 32 cousins. So our growing up, every Sunday was at Ohio Youth. So we didn't have much of an option but not to like wrestling. So my youth years were wrestling and being the bopper and running around. And then so obviously wrestled in Ohio, went to a school called Mount Union, was lucky enough to have a great career athletically and academically, so much so that actually after I graduated, they asked me to be an assistant coach. And I actually only kept that job for 6 months, and then was promoted when I was 24 to head coach while I was there. So I coached for 5 years at Mount Union, and then my wife's originally from Waseon, Ohio. So that's about 20 minutes south of Adrian, Michigan. And so when we were getting ready to start our family, it was kind of perfect timing that when we were getting ready to have kids, Adrian was looking for a coaching or had a coaching opening. And so that's kind of how we ended up at Adrian, because my wife was around from this area. And so we wanted to get here. So just finished up my 10th year coaching, even though I'm still relatively young, but being able to start, young kind of helps. So, and then here at Adrian, so this is our 6th year of having a program since we had 30 years of no wrestling. We just finished, even though it was a kind of a weird year, finished 3 years now where we had a national qualifier. So 2 years ago, we had 2 guys named All Americans. And then this past year, we had 2 guys who earned All American status. So I think we're starting to really build some momentum. We were in the top 25 rankings in the country this year. So hopefully we can continue to build off of that, find great, young athletes, and continue to hopefully grow. Obviously the goal is obviously to stay in the top 25 and then continue to build from there, try to get in the top 10, and then, hopefully one day bring home a trophy.
Talk to me about Adrian College. What kind of school is it academically, and what kind of kids are you bringing in?
Yeah, so we have about 1,800 students on campus. About 1,000 of those are student athletes. So we offer 52 varsity athletic programs at this point. Wow. So anything from we have 7 hockey teams, figure skating, bass fishing, acrobatics and tumbling, to men's and women's wrestling. You name it, we have it. We've thought about it. We just this past year, we added 3 sports. We added men's and women's rugby, and then we added esports. So our President Docking is very much so athletic gung-ho. And so we continue to add on that side. From the academic side, I would say big time in education, criminal justice, and athletic training are probably then our 2 bigger ones, because we have 5-year programs. And what that means is student athletes can get their undergrad and their master's in 5 years in those programs. And then business is probably the next big one for us, with sports, the sports side of it to anything. Again, President Docking is a big business-minded person, so we make sure our business school is well run. So
awesome. You said men's and women's wrestling, so there's a women's wrestling program at Adrian as well?
Yeah. So we have, so when I actually first got hired, I was both men's and women's head coach. And then as we've grown, so on the men's side, we probably have about 40 guys. And then on the women's side, Coach Kashard now probably has about 25 to 30 girls. So we have 2 fully funded programs. So it's myself, and then I have a full-time assistant, and then Coach Kashard, full-time head coach, and he has assistant as well. So
Awesome.
Coach, I'm looking at your roster. You got about 40 guys on there, 40 to 50 guys. Talk a little bit about, what Adrian College allows you to do roster-wise. Most D1 schools are only allowed to roster close to 30, and it looks like you're rostering almost 50 or 60.
Yeah. So with the school allows us to kind of like, we want to give opportunities for student athletes to compete. So I'll never, if a kid comes in, sends us an email or whatnot, and is dedicated to continuing their wrestling career, we're not going to turn that away. I don't believe it's in my best interest to tell a kid like, hey, you're not good enough to wrestle at this level. So obviously there's guys that we're trying to go after, right? Like the no different than the state champs and the state placers and all that. But what the school allows us to do is we are able to take that roster, and then everybody's still allowed to travel and compete and do that. So just even like the first semester of our season, the Adrian Invite, we host that, everybody competes. So if you're guy 1 through 50, you're competing in the invite as long as, right, you're healthy, you're eligible, and you're doing all those things. The Adrian duels, no different. Obviously, we'll take the 10 guys to be in those dual lineups. Everybody else is still competing. And then wherever we travel, we go to Ohio Northern, we go to the Olivet duels, we continue to be able to take everybody to compete. For me, I'm a big believer in competition makes the best out of all of us. So, right, if as I tell guys when they walk into my office and we're talking about the roster, the team, or whatever, listen, if they hired 2 head wrestling coaches, 2 men's head wrestling coaches, and said one of you gets the job at the end of the year, I would like to think that I'm an extremely hard worker right now. But if they did that, now my lifeline is on, my family's on the line, like everything, my income and all that, like you can bet I'm going to be working my tail off to make sure that at the end of the year, like it's not even close, right? Like I'm not even going to leave it up to someone's decision. Like it's going to be clear as day, and no different. Like that's what we should want, right? Like we should work so hard that we're not leaving something in the hands of an official, because they're human. Things are going to be close and calls are going to be made. And so for me, it's all about that competition factor, right? When your alarm goes off at 6:50 or 5:50, depending on what time lifting is and all that, and you're like, man, I'm sore, I'm tired, but there's a guy chomping at the bit that wants your spot. Like I would like to think that if you're a competitor, you're going to say, it doesn't matter how tired, how sore I am, I'm getting up because I'm not letting somebody take my spot. And no different on the other side. If there's now there's the standard that I'm looking at, right? Like you look at the best programs in the country, the Augsburg, the Wartburgs of the world, who've won the last 23 national titles in wrestling. That's how it is, right? There's when a guy goes down, they're replacing that guy with another All American. And so for us, we're trying to just build that standard and that level of competition that when guys go down, obviously from the institution that I came from, they won 13 national titles in football, like just trying to steal and take as much of that and saying, hey, let's have a competitive edge within our own room. Now, nobody likes to sit the bench, and I totally understand that. And that's where, we're fortunate enough here at Adrian that everybody's going to compete. Go compete, right? If you want to be the guy, and that's the best thing about wrestling, it's not my decision. Go compete. We go to the Adrian Invite. You're a freshman and you think you're better than the returning starter, and go prove it. Hey, there's 12 other teams here. There might be 16, 18, 20 guys in your bracket. Go prove it. Let's go see where you're at. So
awesome. Adrian College is located in Lenawee County, obviously, which is a Michigan wrestling hotbed with Hudson, Dundee. It's just loaded with talent down there. In your 5 years at Adrian, what's been the biggest hurdle for you? And has that spot obviously, geographically helped you, being located in a wrestling hotbed?
Yeah. So I would say the biggest hurdle right now has just been like, I'm not from Michigan. And so just making those connections, right? The wrestling community is small in its own regard, but right, like in Ohio, I can make one phone call and then connect my way to somebody that I need to. So in the past 5 years, it's just been making those relationships. So it's definitely helped. I remember I'll talk about Scooter for a little bit here. I remember I got hired, and all of a sudden I get this phone call from a Michigan number, and I answer it, and it's Scooter married Hudson. He says, "Hey, when are you going to be in town? Come over, check out Hudson, like let's meet or whatever." And so I ended up just driving up 3 hours. We hadn't moved yet. I drove up 3 hours to go meet him at Hudson High School, and he's showing me around. And then he's like, "All right, in July, we're going to run this 3-day camp at Adrian. We're going to get you some kids on campus." And I remember thinking all right, I don't have time to run a camp for 20 kids. While I'm trying to make this transition, I'm trying to move my family 3 hours, buy a house, sell a house, and do all this. And I didn't have to do anything. So I show up in June, whatever, and there's 60, 70 kids in our wrestling room. So I think it's just to talk, Scooter did that, but then Lenawee County and all these coaches, I've had countless number of lunches now and meetings and just ways that we can help them. But then they've helped me and made me feel like I was a part of this community and I grew up here. And now we've been able to do that. So 100%. I mean, Zach Rieger was my first national qualifier. He came from Hudson. He was a state runner-up from Hudson. Noah Neiman, who All American this year, was from Blissfield, Lenawee County kid, was a state runner-up, All American now for us. Isaiah Espinoza was a state runner-up, state champ out of Adrian High School, was an All-American. He's now been a 2-time All-American for us, was named an All-American and then took 8th this year. So right there, Lenawee County has been super helpful to us. I think one big thing is we have a lot of great athletes in this town. And so we know that, there's going to be some guys that go on to go do bigger and better things. But if we can just keep some of the athletes close to home, build a fan base, I'm sure as you guys know, right? You're a community, right? You guys have been successful because you have a community and now you have success that way. For us, we're just trying to do that on a bigger stage. Make Adrian College the community of Lenawee County. And, if we can get these focal points, I think at one point we had 7 or 8 of our starters from Lenawee County.
Wow.
And so it's just, that's huge when mom, dad, or just a little kid, right? We talk about the growth of wrestling. We have Sand Creek or Blissfield bring their youth programs, and they know 1 or 2 or 3 of these guys because they've watched these kids grow up. And now they get to watch them compete at a high level. That just continues to help put us in a better spot.
So I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit here and just talk a little bit specifics of Adrian College and what you guys do in wrestling. I got to witness it. I got to shoot some film with you a few weeks back, and you kind of gave us an inside look at your 7-step drill. And I just want to say, getting to work with you, just setting up the video shoot. You've worked at camp with me. I'm pretty impressed with your organization, how you organize things in general with your program. And not only that, but just with your technique and your structure of how you run a practice. So we got a really good in-depth look at that with your 7-step drill. And I feel and I'll let you speak on it, but the 7-step drill to me and what I kind of saw is you can run a practice with just the 7-step drill program, and not only one practice, but several different types of practices. So whether it be a light day, a hard day, a technique day, they all can really stem from the 7-step drill. So I feel if you take an in-depth look at this and you understand what you're doing, you could run almost the bulk of your practices around this type of structure. So I'll just let you speak on it more in depth.
Yeah. So 100% for me, maybe it's just because I was born OCD. So everything should have a box or a spot or a place for it. And so that's kind of just how my mind works. And when I think about practices and whatnot, right, as much as student athletes try to say that they love structure, right? And they're successful when they have structure. And so for me, it's if we can create that structure, but without being boring, right? If you say, hey, today, you can have all the structure in the world, but if you're today we're going to hit, 21 shots, you're going to hit 21 single legs. 1 through 5 might be good, but then 6 through 10 are going to drop off, and then 11 through 15 and so on and so forth. They're going to, by the end of it, they're just kind of like going through the motions like, come on, coach, can we get to the next drill, or can we do something? So for us, this was something that we did in college. And then I just tried to like, really like, I liked it because I knew what my practice was going to look like. But then I also knew like everything was changing throughout the practice still and whatnot. And so like with the 7-step drill, right? Like even if you're doing, let's just say 3 single legs every step, there's 21 shots. And so then you can continue to build off of that and make that, if you do 2 different types of shots, now you're potentially up, right? You doing the numbers, like you can make this that eventually you're doing, however many numbers of shots that you want to do. We typically do something what we call 3x3, which is you take your 3 best shots and you do them 3 times each at each stage of the 7 steps. So you're doing 9 shots, 9 times 7 is 63. So in a bulk of a practice, you can do 63 shots. So you can practice your shots 63 times. Again, if you just say, let's do something 63 times, it doesn't matter. If you're a kindergartner, you're going to do about 1. And if you're in college, you're going to do about 8, right? And then that's about it. And then you're like, all right, let's move on. And so for me, it's just about creating that structure. No different with the 7-step. We have a ton of different things. Like I was talking, I saw like you guys did the side-by-side ankle, kind of drilling and whatnot. To me, that's huge. Like we have a whole series on just what we call positional drilling. And I got probably like 40 quote unquote positions and put guys. To me, that's wrestling, right? Like how can we simulate live, but slow it down so that guys can start to learn and understand, right? Like if you take like math, right? If you try to be like, hey, we're going to do math. I'm not going to teach you anything, or you kind of have an understanding of how math works. And now you got to do 120 questions in 60 minutes. Ready, set, go, right? Like there's going to be mistakes made. But if you can take that and slow that down and say, we're going to try to take the live portion of this, and we're going to put you in positions where now you got to work your way and figure your way out and in, and no different with this drilling, right? Like it's going to start out easy and you're going to kind of start to hopefully create some good habits where where you need to be, right? Everybody, I love technique and I'm big, like, but no high crotch is quote unquote all the same, because you're going to have a guy at 125 who's 5 foot nothing, and then you have a heavyweight who might be 6'5", right? The basic concept is there, but to me, it's about like what feels right with your body and how can you score and how can you do it enough times that you feel comfortable doing it. Because as much as we want everything to look picture perfect by the book, I mean, even at the highest level, it never totally looks like that, right? Like maybe, you look at Jordan Burroughs' double and you can say, okay, like that looks, but every time he finishes it, I don't think that it's the same and the thousands of times that he's finished that double. And that's just my take on it, right? So how can we put you in that situation where you feel comfortable enough to take that double and know that you go, doesn't matter where this guy puts his hand, heads, whatever. I have done this 1,000 times that I know how I need to finish, how I feel comfortable in that spot.
So the 7-step drill, specifically, you run through those 7 steps. It's a progression from step 1 to step 7 of doing those 3 moves that you said, or maybe 2 moves or 1 move, however many it is. In starting at it from a progression of you're not finishing to by the end, you're almost wrestling live through that position. And depending on how many moves you're going to do, it could take 25 minutes or it could take 45 minutes, correct?
Yeah. I would, I don't have my notes in front of me right now, but I kind of have I'm doing this for 10 years now, have a pretty good idea. I know when we do 3x3, which is 3 shots, 3 times each at each step, we're looking at an hour of practice right there. So if we do a 15-20 minute warm up, we're already an hour and 20 minutes into practice. But so I'll kind of take you through and kind of really, talk about like step 1, is no finish. The highlights are perfect stance, perfect technique, perfect position, right? So you get in, if you're doing a high crotch, you just focus on where does my head got to be? Where's my hand placement? Where are my hips? Are my hips under me? Get in there, kind of get a lift, make the guy take a few steps, boom, done. Nothing, right? Because while we've gotten a warm up in, like, let's get our bodies used, feeling good, right? Sometimes, and the reason we did like no finish, I hate when, as coaches, and we all probably do this, is like, we're like, hey, think about your head position. Think about where your hands are at. Think about where your hips are at. And we're like telling these kids, like, think about all these things, which they're all important. But then, like, a guy's like, well, where, like, especially guys who just trying to, like, coach, just slow it down. Like, let me figure this out. And let's feel it in. So then step 2 is now you're finishing. Same, perfect stance, perfect technique, perfect position, perfect finish now. You get in slow. Defensive guy is not doing anything, right? So your offense, you're going at a light, medium pace. Defensive guy, you're doing nothing. Then becomes hard. Number 3 is hard drilling. So now it's kind of the same as number 1 and number 2, except for, again, with a finish, the intensity of number 1 comes up. Now you're going a little bit higher. Again, defense is not totally doing a whole lot, but maybe giving a little bit better look, not just falling over, right? Just kind of being a better partner. And then, to me, now this is where it comes, like, you're really starting to change things up, making it feel quote unquote fun, or like, hey, we're doing some wrestling. Number 4 is easy in, hard out. So as soon as contact is made, or as soon as I get to that leg, now defensive guy is picking it up to like that 60 percentile, giving me a look. Like, as I try to tell guys, like, just because, like, if I'm drilling with somebody, and I always try to, like, pick the best guys. So normally I, like, the past 2 years, I always pick on Isaiah. And I'm like, just because if me going at 10% means that I could always score on Isaiah, right? And that's supposed to be meant as a joke. But, like, just because me going at 10%, I could always score on Isaiah, that's not the purpose of this drill. The purpose of this drill is I'm going at 60. I'm giving Isaiah a look, letting him finish. And sometimes what you hopefully will start to see, especially from your leaders in the room, is they might even be like, they might give a sprawl, and then, like, the guy finishes, but then he's like, hey, like, that's not going to work. Like, you, like, hesitated there and whatnot. And, like, guys will, like, try to, like, and so now guys are learning. Now what that also starts to do is the defensive guy is starting to think, like, what the offensive guy is doing, right? And, like, so that's supposed to be about wrestling, right? Thinking about where you're supposed to be at, or where you're trying to be at. Where can I be at? How can I, right? This is a game of chess, right? How can I be a step ahead of you to know, like, ooh, you're hitting a high crotch. I know what I got to do to stop that. And so that's hard in, easy out, or I'm sorry, easy in, hard out. And then the next step 5 is hard in, easy out. Same thing. Now we're learning how to hand fight. Now we're learning how to get to our position, right? So now and those 4 and 5 should be 10 seconds on the hard part, right? So it should really be kind of so if I'm easy in, I'm just boom, collar tie, pull, get to my high crotch. Now the fight's on. Now it should be a 5-10 second struggle of knee sliding, knee pounding, trying to work my way up, doing whatever I need to do. Again, not doing there. Hard in, same thing. Now, all right, boom, as soon as we start to tie up, let's work on hand position. I got to get to my position. I got to push, pull, look for where can I get that foot step so I can get to my high crotch, wherever I need to be. As soon as I make contact, okay, now it's an easy finish. I go back to, like, kind of like that autopilot mode of, like, okay, I know how to finish from here. Number 6 is my favorite. We call it sparring. Offensive defense, like, so offense maybe like 75%, defense is going 50%. To me, it should be, some people call this like play wrestling. To me, like, the best way I can put it is, like, if you have 2 high-level guys, it should look like an art in practice. Like, that's like, just, there should be some flow. There shouldn't be any, like, muscle and guys, like, really, like, sprawling hard, but it just, like, there should be a sprawl, but it should be like, there should be a progression of guys. To me, that's probably where guys learn the most, right? You hear bits and pieces of, kind of what Penn State's doing and whatnot. And, like, some of this play wrestling gets talked about a lot, and, like, just that flow of practice, and they're trying to learn and figure out, okay, if I'm here, what do I need to do, and kind of doing all that. And then the last step is hard. Offensive guy, you're going 100%. Defensive guy, you're going 75%. Again, object is not for the defensive guy to win this battle, but to give a good look. And step 7, each shot should take 10 to 15 seconds. Like there should be a battle there. Even if you got 2 guys who are outmatched and, one guy's better than the other guy should be given, like, make it a fight, right? And I think also what this does is from the defensive side, guys learn how to fight, right? So many times, like a guy gets in on a single leg and they just, all right, fall over. And maybe that's because that's how they practice or whatever, but I just see it too many times and all stages of wrestling, maybe outside of Division I and up, but the guy gets to a single leg and the other guy, like, if he's tired in the match, like, just kind of, all right, bellies out and doesn't give a fight. Like, so I think it does 2 things. You get a lot of great drilling, but on the defensive side, like, guys start to maybe hopefully learn how to fight and, steps 4, 5, and 7. But also they learn how to, like, kind of think about wrestling and where guys should be at.
Coach, so if I'm doing a 3x3 drill there, I do 3 sets at 9 reps in each step you're indicating, right? So
Yep.
there's a total of 63 reps if I go through all 7 steps.
And that's just you. Now your partner's going to do that as well. So, right. So guys will break it up. Like, I kind of give them the freedom. And again, this is where, like, for us, I feel like I have the structure of the drill and I'm telling you how much. But then I tell guys, like, listen, if you want to alternate every single one and that's easier for you, you can do that. Or if you want to do, I'm doing my 3 single legs, then you do your 3 single legs, then or I'm going to do all 9 of mine and then you're going to go do all 9 of yours. While that doesn't seem like, well, who cares? Like, it gives the student athlete some, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And now they kind of take a little bit of ownership and they feel like, hey, I got to choose how I want to do this. When in reality, like, they're doing what I want them to do. And so it gives them that flexibility of how they want to do it.
Well, sure. I mean, I remember back in my college days, I didn't want to do 9 reps in a row. There were days where I was exhausted, right? So, I mean, you'd walk in and you'd be like, damn it. I mean, and you'd think, hey, all right, I can do 3 reps, or even alternating shots becomes a little bit easier, so giving the athlete that freedom is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I think the part I like about this the most, especially for the vault, is that this gives coaches a roadmap of essentially how to run a practice. And it's just a drill practice, but it can be so much more than that. And you really go through the details super well in the video. You guys can find that on the vault. He goes through each step in depth, shows you how to do it with a coach. And, you can see, as they're doing it, they're getting, by the end, they're tired, from showing it, and they're just trying to show it and take their time. But Coach Schindel was going with Coach Morrison, and he's got a lot of weight on him and stuff like that, but they both were working and getting through the positions. And it was just awesome for me to be able to watch and be able to see the in-depth part of that. So to me, it was really cool. I definitely am excited about implementing parts of this or the whole thing into my practices, and then seeing where my athletes take it, because you talked about it being an art form. And I think that's where it's going to be different for everybody. And you can kind of pick and choose on how you want to do this, but it's just going to look different everywhere. But the roadmap is there. So I feel like for young coaches or even for old coaches who maybe aren't kind of hip on the new play wrestling stuff, this is a great way to kind of implement that into your practices. So I don't know, do you have any more comments on that?
No, I mean, I'm a huge advocate of drilling, right? Like, I just think, like, maybe it was just my personal high school career. Like, it was just like, we did technique and then it was like, all right, let's do half an hour live. And I just think, like, I didn't get the full amount of practice sometimes because of that. Like, while live is great, putting guys in positions to figure things out and learn and really, like, fall in love with the sport of wrestling. And drilling, to me, drilling does that, right? For us, second half of the season, now granted, we're dealing with, grown adults. Second half of the season, we are 80-90% all drilling from January and February, because we are, there's a small part of technique, but we are doing no live wrestling because we are trying to limit injuries as much as possible. So we are now just drill. And again, if every practice looks the same, guys get pretty burnt out, right? And I just hate all right, it's January, it's like, all right, let's get my shoes on. Let's get the warm up. I mean, we change our warm ups. We'll, from, hey, we're going to play spike ball today to warm up. Like, just depending on where I see the attitude of the guys are at, and trying to, like, if everybody's coming in and they're skipping and high fiving, like, like that's almost a bad thing for them. Cause like now I know, like, all right, we can make a good practice here. Right. But if guys are like coming in, the first thing they're grabbing is a foam roller, and like, they almost kind of have that, like, man, I just need my shoes on. Like, read your room and then go, okay, how do we make this? All right, let's play some spark ball. Let's get them warmed up. Let's get a good hard drill in. But, for us, we probably have 4, 5, 6 sets of things like the 7-step drill. That way we can kind of just pull from the book and just go, okay, here's what we're going to do today. And again, like, then you can change this up. Start off, just if you want to figure it out, just do 2 shots. Each one. Hey, pick your favorite 2 shots. For me, it was a high crotch and a slide by. Okay. You hit each one time, maybe take it, 20 minutes. Well, as a coach, like, see how the room goes, go from there. Roughly, if you got a good group, they should all be ending at the same time. Sometimes when you get up to, the 3x3s, you'll get guys will get done. We have jump ropes in the room. So to me, that's the necessary evil, that, like, they're either going to really focus on that so they don't have to go to the jump rope until they want to be the last group, or they're going to get done and then they got to go grab a jump rope, and the rope doesn't stop until the last group stops. So.
Awesome. So Coach, you've been a great resource. Like you said, the wrestling community is small. You've been helping other coaches have been helping you. I just think coaches should get a hold of you, because in my experience with you, you've been an open book. You've been willing to help in a lot of different ways, whether it's run a practice or just meet kids and stuff like that. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So I can give as long as I'm allowed to, I'll give out my cell number right now. So 330-472-9142 is my cell. Or my email is on our website. It's bschindel@adrian.edu. Listen, if you want to just go to lunch and talk wrestling, like, I'll warn you though, like, it'll be a 2-hour lunch. Or go. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned. I wish I almost knew that in the first half of my career than 10 years in. But what I've really started doing in the last 3 years, and obviously last year we had to take a pause, but I've just been emailing or shooting texts to coaches, whether it's, Coach Borelli at Central Michigan to high school coaches. Like, I think so many times, like, we can all learn from each other, and somebody says something in a lunch meeting, just talking about wrestling, and they say something, and I'm like, I got to write this down. And then you take and steal and build off of each other. So, if anybody, like, call me, email me, I just like talking wrestling. So we can talk wrestling and strategies and all that. And I just think that helps everybody.
We'll put those that contact information in our notes. You guys will find this on Coach's Corner, obviously, but then in our blog portion, our outline portion, we'll have his contact information in there. You guys want to get a hold of him. But I just want to say thank you for Mitch and I and the Wrestling Vault for giving us your time this morning and going over some of the stuff that you did. It's awesome. I know I learned something today. And I don't know, Mitch, do you have anything more before we turn this off?
Yeah, 5 years ago when you were hired, I think everyone in the Michigan wrestling community said, who is this, right? So, and just seeing the way you carry yourself and how excited and enthusiastic you are about the sport and all the things that I hear about you, and looking at the numbers of your team camps, I'd say they hired the right guy. It seems like you are from the Dave Dees family and then the Bill Dees family. So that's not bad heritage there. My college roommate, obviously Bulliard, went to Akron, Springfield. So,
yeah. So Dave smoked me with a pillow a handful of times growing up. When growing up, like Dave and Barry were kind of my idols. And so Bulliard definitely got the better of me when we were growing up.
Made you tougher, Coach, right?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on today. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Coach.